you, Howard?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I am doing great. I mean, that was that quote. It's just one quote. It's a hell of a quote. But in the midst of a 2,000-word long-form piece on LeBron and Carmelo, did you speak with LeBron just a couple of days ago? When did you chat with him on this front?
No, that interview was on February 8th. So that was the Tuesday of All-Star Week. I dropped into Cleveland to go chat with him for that piece. And I talked to Carmelo a few weeks before that. As you might imagine, the story, because of the scope and because of the two people involved, Carmelo and LeBron, not the easiest guys necessarily to pin down for a long discussion. So it took some doing, and then, it's a lengthy piece, so it took a long time to finish reporting and writing. So it's interesting, Rich. I mean, as I'm reporting and writing this and trying to put this together and getting it to my editors, all of these other things happen in LeBron's world, of course. Unfollowing the Cavs account on Twitter, and the game in Miami where he's, chatting and laughing with Dwayne Wade on the same night that, Miami ends up, beating the heck out of the Cavs. So all these other things happen, and I'm sitting on this quote that I know is going to cause a stir, even if it had popped, when things were perfectly peaceful around the Cavaliers. And it was unfortunate for him in the timing, that if we'd run the story the same day that I got the quote, people might look at it in a different light. But it's understandable with the context that people look at this as one more sign of whether they think it's LeBron's discontent or LeBron's preference for playing with other stars other than the ones he's got as teammates. I think that's actually a little unfair to him, partially because of the timing. And I tried to point it out as quickly as I could yesterday on Twitter once the story published that, the interview was, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And, the bottom line to me, and I know the way he said it, the tone, and the way, the context of our conversation, LeBron was, as he noted in that soundbite from last night, LeBron was basically talking about how great it would be to play with his friends. That's the bottom line. This is not about, are these guys better than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love? Is he discontent with his situation? This was more about, the end of a 30-minute interview where we're talking mostly about his friendship and relationship with Carmelo, and then extending to the other two guys in this brotherhood, Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade. And I say, look, Carmelo, I think, the sense I got from him and talking to him is that he would have loved to have played with you, and he sounds regretful that he missed those opportunities over the course of the last 10 years or so. And that's when LeBron went one step further and said, yeah, and not only Carmelo, I'd love to play with all these guys, and I'd take a pay cut to do it. And my eyebrows go up a little bit, like, really? And that's when he kind of says, we'll see. And I wrote that he chirped, like his voice went up, his intonation kind of went, we'll see. And then he kind of smiled, turned away, and that was the end of the interview.
What context should we put it in then, Howard?
I think the context of that friendship, of the bonds between these guys that are very, very real. You've been around sports a long time, Rich. I've been around the NBA for a long time. Mm-hmm. A lot of sports friendships, and certainly the NBA friendships I've seen over the years, a lot of them are pretty flimsy. And, guys talk about how great of friends they are, and then they change teams, and that's the end of that. This is real. These four guys are, the friendship, it goes deep. And they're constantly in contact with each other, whether people like it or not, whether they think, oh, you shouldn't fraternize because you're competitors, separate issue. But the context of LeBron saying that is just this genuine, deep affinity for these other three stars who are all future Hall of Famers, who are all multiple-time All-Stars, who, have a great respect for each other as players as well as this really tight bond as friends.
So then why are we all, Howard Beck of Bleacher Report, after speaking with LeBron and Carmelo for the story that has really inflamed a lot of passions on many coasts, as a matter of fact, on multiple coasts, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So why are we searching for a sign of LeBron's wanderlust? Why is there that canary in his coal mine, Howard? Are we making much ado about nothing?
No, I understand why people read more into it than just the friendship aspect of it, because LeBron has created that. He created it by leaving Cleveland in the first place. He created it by going back to Cleveland. So I think people already look at him as someone who, is he, going to always be looking for wherever the grass is greener, the next set of better teammates. I think that his own career moves have created that, and I think that his kind of ambiguous or mysterious gestures over the last several weeks. Throwing out mysterious quotes in his tweets and then unfollowing the Cavs and all these other things. I think people look at him and think, my gosh, he seems very wistful for what he had in Miami. He doesn't seem altogether thrilled with Kyrie Irving, than maybe Kevin Love at times. And, I said this earlier to someone, if he's not content entirely with what's going on in Cleveland, I can understand why. That big three is not the same quality of the big three that he had in Miami. And I thought that from day one. I was never completely sold on the idea of the Cavaliers as an instant champion. They may still get there. But I also believe that, there are some serious concerns there that team has and that LeBron probably has. And as long as those concerns are there as a backdrop, then anything he says about Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, even if it's just, thinking out loud of a fantasy that they all share, people are always going to read into it. I understand that.
So Carmelo, would he take the pay cut too? He said that, didn't he? He said that in New York yesterday.
Yeah. No, the Knicks beat writers asked him that last night, and I think Carmelo said he would too. He never has, so he took a small cut in his last contract with the Knicks.
Right.
Carmelo's got a history of going for the most money in the most years. Look, they're all getting closer to the end here, Dwayne Wade chiefly. If there were an opportunity, it's not unprecedented. Look, I was covering the Lakers back in 2003-04 when Gary Payton and Karl Malone signed up, and Malone even gave up the possibility of taking the higher contract of a mid-level exception so that Payton, who wanted more money, would take it, and Karl Malone signed for like the veterans minimum, and those two joined up with Shaq and Kobe. Didn't go the way they all wanted it to, but it's not crazy to think that when they get toward the end, whenever that may be, that maybe they would try to manufacture this. I mean, I don't think it's realistic to expect. I also would never rule it out because I think that the desire by these four guys to do it, even if it were just for their final year, I think that desire is strong.
All right, so then last question for you, Howard Beck. Where would that take place? If we just extrapolate it out, right, to its nth degree, where Wade and LeBron can walk away right now at the end of this year, and there's a no-trade clause that Carmelo has, and then CP3 is under contract for a player option, if I'm not mistaken, after next year. So what do you think the possibility is and where?
Well, the possibility of it happening like this in the near term, this summer, next season, I think is next to zero.
Okay.
This isn't about to happen. This is a fantasy these guys have of down the road. Now, down the road can't be that far because, again, Wade's getting up there in years. Carmelo's going to be 32 soon. It may be, 3 years down the road if they're all still playing. Maybe it's 2 years down the road. Maybe Dwayne Wade is the first to do it. Maybe Wade, who never wanted to go to Cleveland, assuming LeBron's still there. And look, I don't think LeBron's leaving Cleveland. But if Wade in another year or two feels like, man, I need to be a reserve now. I'm down to 15, 20 minutes a game. I need to play like a Paul Pierce supporting role, that kind of thing. Would Wade go spend a year in Cleveland just to hang with LeBron again and be part of something? I could see that. By that time, are the Clippers ready to move Chris Paul? I don't know. Is Carmelo Anthony going to ask out in the meantime? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Knicks need to make some serious moves this summer to shore it up so that Carmelo Anthony feels satisfied that they're on a playoff track again.
Well, LeBron maxing out with LeBron would be a way to do it, wouldn't it?
No, absolutely. And I think of the four of them, look, Wade and LeBron had their 4 years together, did pretty well. And of the four of them, the reason I focused that story on Carmelo and LeBron is because that's the core of that group in the first place. They're the ones who have been friends the longest. They're kind of the anchor of that friendship of that quartet. And if there's one guy I think most would want to do this, is most motivated, it would be Carmelo. But and I know it's going to feed right into the Carmelo for Kevin Love swap. Could happen, I suppose. Again, these are not things I expect. But I think the one guy who most wants to link up with LeBron and regrets having closed off those possibilities by the choices he made earlier in his career is Carmelo.
Howard, great story, great piece. Love having you on. I'd love to have you on again, please.
Absolutely, Rich. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. That's Howard Beck of Bleacher Report.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.